Lisa Hoffman, the Home Buddy Realtor with Remax Signature Homes. Today I'm going to talk about flood zones. Admittedly, this is not something I'm an expert in. Thus, I brought my experts in to help me explain it a little better so you can get a full understanding of what buying in a flood zone means. Obviously, there are reasons not to do it, but the one advantage is that the homes that are in flood zones are less expensive than identical homes in the same area. So normally when a client comes to me and they say, "Hey, I want to buy a home," they give me their location, they give me, their specifics, beds, baths, square footage, and then they give me their budget. And if one of those, and it's usually the budget, does not allow for the other two, we need to adjust somewhere. So either we need to expand our area and look at, less expensive towns. We need to make compromises. Maybe instead of a 4-bedroom, we look at a 3-bedroom and a finished basement. Or instead of 2 baths, we settle for 1.5. Or the other thing we can do is find money somewhere. What does that mean? So we maybe take out a different type of loan, we borrow more money and put less down, we borrow from a 401k, we borrow from family. If that's not an option or something you don't feel comfortable with, and the other option is always we wait. But I'm having people come to me and they're like, "Look, I need to be in this town because that's where my kids go to school. So I need to stay in the school system. COVID has taught me that I need more space. So I need to increase my square footage. And this is my budget. I don't feel comfortable taking out a bigger loan or borrowing against something else." We're kind of stuck. So at that point, the option becomes, well, how do you feel about flood zones? And essentially, it's because we would save money. So now let's go and talk to Victor from Clear Skies and see how they determine what is a flood zone.
Hi, I'm Victor here with Clear Skies Title, and today I'll be speaking to you just for a minute about flood searches. So flood searches, before we begin, are just really just comparisons of a property against FEMA maps, and they're usually done very quickly and are really inexpensive, so you should definitely do them. So here we are in front of us. We have a flood search from our friends at Western Technology, who does all of our flood searches. The main thing that we look for is here in section D, where it says determination. We're looking to see if the property is in a special flood hazard area, and that really just means that flood insurance will be required by your lender or not. Beyond that, we also might look at this overlay here. This is useful for us to tell if a property, even if it doesn't require flood insurance, if there's a portion of the property that is prone to flooding. Like in this case, we see that the house itself is not in a flood, isn't in a flood area. However, the back of the house might be.
So we know our house is in a flood zone, and now it's time to get flood insurance. That's going to be added into our monthly mortgage rates, just like taxes are. So Chris Gonzalez is going to help explain how that works.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Gonzalez, owner of Gonzalez & Company Insurance Agency in North Bergen, New Jersey. And today I'm going to talk to you about flood insurance and what to look out for when purchasing a flood insurance policy. So when buying a house, make sure to find out what flood zone that property is located in. The most hazardous flood zones are labeled with the letter A. These are flood zones where there is a 1% chance of that property flooding in any given year. And over the course of a 30-year mortgage, that property has a 26% chance of flooding. So obviously, a property that's located in an A zone will have much higher rates than a property that's located in a much less hazardous zone. The least hazardous are X zones. Plus, anytime you buy a property in an A zone, you will be required by your mortgage to purchase flood insurance. And that could add thousands of dollars on top of your mortgage costs. So be careful. The second most important factor, let's say you have 2 properties. One has a basement, one does not. You will pay more in flood insurance for that property that has a basement than the property that doesn't. So that's another important consideration. And finally, where to shop. My recommendation is to approach your professional insurance agent and have them provide you a quote with FEMA, which is the federally backed flood insurance plan. And it's provided by many different carriers, but they will all have the same rates. You should also have your current agent also shop it out with private flood carriers because the rates can vary dramatically.
Okay, so we know the house is in a flood zone, and we've calculated the insurance into our monthly mortgage payments. Now it's time to do the home inspection like we would do with any house. And this is where we have our home inspector really look at the systems the current owner has in place. So they're going to look at the sub pump. Usually there's one or more sub pumps in the basement. Another thing we sometimes see is French drains. As Peter from A Plus Home Inspection is going to explain, it's not always limited to the interior. We have to look at the exterior as well.
If you're looking to buy a house in a flood zone, it's important to evaluate it beforehand to make sure if there's any immediate concerns that might affect the purchase of your home. If you do a home inspection and notice any evidence of active flooding, it might be something that can be taken care of before you close on the house. However, indications of flooding might be subtle. It's always important to take proactive measure in waterproofing your basement. This could be taking actions on the outside, landscaping, making sure that water has proper grading so it doesn't come into the basement, and making it harder for water to get into your basement in general. If you take these precautions, that it makes it harder for the water to get into your basement, and if you have rain in the future, we don't have to worry about water getting into your basement. Our main concern is the next 25-year storm that can cause flooding, the next Hurricane Sandy. We need to take preventative measures, especially if you have waterproofing, if you have sump pumps in the basement, if you have French drains. These are systems that can be overworked. If you don't have proper landscaping on the outside, your waterproofing is being overworked. So when the actual Hurricane Sandy does come, your system will not be ready.
So the conclusion here is really, if you need to be in a specific town and you have specific criteria, but your budget is preventing you from buying a house that is not in a flood zone, this is an option we can consider to save some money. But we need to know what we're going into. We're going to check and make sure that we can afford the payments. We're going to make sure that the current owner has a mitigation process in place, such as multiple sub pumps, French drains. We may choose to calculate the cost of working on the exterior. And then based on that information, we'll decide whether or not the savings warrant looking in flood zones.